Welcome to your total body mobility practice that is supportive throughout your cycle. So, this one can be used in any cycle phase. It's a great complement to your strength training days. So, this one is considered an active rest day. It will be low intensity the whole way through and will be sort of an active stretching day. So, you'll get to explore new ranges of motion. You'll sort of carve out more space in the hips and shoulders. And we're really working on spinal mobility. So, the ability to articulate different parts of the spine independently so that we get to experience that freedom that comes with spinal alignment and really getting the fluidity that's available in this amazing structure that we have in our bodies. So, today we have just 15 different exercises, most of them dynamic, where we're kind of moving through two phases of motion to help, again, drop into those deeper places in the hips and shoulders. We'll be in each movement pattern for just a minute, and then you'll have 20 seconds to transition. Again, this recovery interval is really just to get set up in the next body position. It's enough time to transition. We shouldn't be working at an intensity that really needs this recovery period. It's more, again, just to give you time to switch and set up for the next exercise. So for your intensity, we're staying right around the 50% mark. For an active rest day, we don't really want to go much higher than that. You do want to feel some healthy heat. You might find that your breathing gets accelerated, but you're not gasping for air. You're not really having to breathe through the mouth too much. So this is another way to drop into moving meditation by facilitating that deep diaphragmatic breath through the nose. So focus on lengthening inhales and exhales to help you drop into that more even, balanced place. This is a great one to use in the late luteal phase or kind of that premenstrual transition. If you're experiencing waves of anxiety, it can really help ground your energetic body and promote more balance so that you feel that recalibration that is sometimes necessary in the high to low hormone transition. You won't need any equipment for today. I am using a rolled up blanket just to provide a little bit of cushion to the knees and shins when we're in some of our kneeling postures. You'll also want to be positioned near a wall space. So we are utilizing the wall to help get us a little deeper into some of these postures for today. So I encourage you to really listen to your body today. Sometimes mobility is a new way of moving. And if any of these patterns are new to you, just take it slow, be patient and gentle with yourself, and really kind of listen to any signals that are popping up from your body. And now let's get into today's workout. Let's begin this 20-minute mobility session for today. All you will need is your body weight. I do have a rolled up blanket. I'm using that to provide a little cushion when I'm on a hard surface. You'll also want to be near a wall space for a few of the movement patterns. We just have 15 different exercises. We're moving through them one time. We'll do each exercise for a minute with 20 seconds to transition in between. So I will get our timer started. We'll have 20 seconds before we begin. Our first movement pattern is going to be a Kang squat. So this one, we're going to take our hands behind the head, broaden across the chest, elbows wide. We're alternating between a hip hinge, then we'll drop into our squat. We'll come back to the hip hinge and all the way up. Let's get ready to move in 5 seconds. Feet are pointing straight forward. 2 and 1. Keep the belly strong, spine is long. Drop into your squat only as far as you can while keeping the chest lifted, back through that hinge and up to stand. So we hip hinge, drop into your squat, and then hip hinge once again and back up. If this is a new movement for you, you can always bring the hands to the chest. If that feels a little bit better, you can always widen the feet a little bit to get more depth in that squat. It's a slightly different entry point for the squat, so we can't really override any of the mobility in the hips here. You have to kind of keep your form and mechanics aligned. So I love this entry from the hip hinge position into the squat. It's kind of a great way to switch things up, give you some more challenge. Hinge, squat, hinge, and stand. 20 seconds now to switch to our next exercise, which is going to be a reverse lunge to a sumo. So I'll demonstrate here quickly. We're stepping back into our reverse lunge, taking our time, sumo squat, back to reverse lunge, stepping up, and we'll switch. The key is to pivot on the ball of the back foot. Let's begin. Here we go. Step it back, pivot on that back foot, sumo squat, back to your lunge, and stand. Switch sides. Sumo squat, feel that stretch across the inner thighs. So I want you to feel very light on that back foot. So you're lifting the heel so that you can pivot on the toes. We're keeping the torso nice and stable here. Find that steady breath rhythm. This one is gentle enough that you should be able to breathe in and out through the nose for most of the practice. We're not taking the heart rate too high today. This is an active rest day practice, so you're using it between your strength training days, just to keep the muscles awake and online, and to give a little bit of a stretch, kind of that active range of motion work here, and rest. So our next movement pattern is a standing windmill. I want you to take a pretty narrow stance in the feet, maybe just slightly wider than hips width. To come into this one, we're going to turn the toes to one side. That opposite arm comes down. We drop the shoulder, and you've got your other hand in close to the chest. I want you to lean over, bend into that knee, bring the elbow to the knee, and come up. Then we switch. So you turn your toes to the other side. The leg that is aligned with your lower arm, that knee is going to bend, and you bring that elbow to the inner knee. So your outside arm reaches, drop the shoulder blade, and we come into that windmill. So what I want you to feel here is that little bit of opening in one side of the lower back and the outer leg. You're also getting good range of motion in the shoulder here. The arm stays pointing straight up. Doesn't really move, that top arm, through this entire range of motion. And then you can imagine how we might take this work, these mechanics, into a weighted variation of this exercise. Last one here. Next up, we're coming into our Romanian deadlift with a standing balance. This is simply going to look like taking that Romanian deadlift all the way back and then lifting up, bringing the knee to the chest. If the extended leg is too much, you can always keep that moving leg bent. So you might keep that knee bent. And then come up, hug the knee in. We're staying on one side for this one. So you're in that stabilization effort for the standing leg for this entire interval. So if you need to, if you start to feel a little bit of fatigue in that standing leg, you can touch the toes down for a moment, maybe shake it out, and then come back in. I want you to feel how the spine moves as a unit. So we're not creating any waves in the spine, not wiggling in and out. It's just that solid position, that neutral position in the spine as we come into the hip hinge, and then as we come up. Definitely feeling my workout from yesterday in the calves and lower legs here. So forgive my balance. Be gentle and kind to yourself if you're having that same struggle with the balance challenge. Maybe circle out the ankles here. We'll do the same thing on the other side next. Mobility is quickly becoming one of my favorite modalities, and I hope through this practice you'll start to understand why. Let's begin. So it allows us to kind of explore body positions and movement patterns that we might visit fairly often in our practice, but we take them in a different way when we are focused on mobility. So here, we're hinging at the hips, but we're focusing on that activation, on leveling the hips and shoulders, on letting the spine move together. There's a different degree of intention when we move slowly and when we're focused on kind of experiencing the full range from start to finish. We're not trying to shortcut any part of the movement here. Remember, keep the hips and shoulders level so that moving leg, that hip and shoulder may want to pop open. So I want you to maybe take the hands to the hip points or even at your chest, whatever you need to do to keep that level position. And rest. Shake out the ankles once again. Next, we're coming into our rocking lunge with a rotation. So we're going to bring the hands to the inside of the right foot to start. And we are going to open the chest, bring the hands down, and slide the hips back, straighten that front leg. So you come forward, deep lunge, twist, bring the hand down, and slide it back. As you twist, fix the position of the hips. The hips don't move. We want this rotation to happen in the upper back, so you can bring your hand all the way up. I like to bring my hand to heart and really press the heart into that hand, and then straighten the leg any amount. So you've got that deep lunge, fixing the position of the hips, rotating the rib cage, and then straightening the leg, relaxing the head. I want you to imagine almost like you're taking your rib cage, rotating it open, and then coming back down. You can always take this with the back knee down as well. If it's creating too much strain across the pelvic floor or the legs, press that heart open and back to center. Last one like this. And nice and easy, we'll just switch sides next. So you can shake out the feet, sway the hips side to side, and then we'll do the same thing on the second side. So again, here, I want you to imagine like you're wrapping your rib cage around, dropping that left hip crease down so the hips stay in that same position the whole time. Here we go. Twist it open, come back through center, straighten that front leg any amount. It's like you're folding the body inward as you straighten that leg, but we're staying on the ball of the back foot. You're just transferring onto the heel of that front foot as you come through that second phase of the movement. Breathing here. So again, press your heart open, keep the hips in that fixed position. It can even be on peaceful fists if that feels better, gives you a little more height. And as you come through that twist, I want you to focus on elongating the crown and the spine. So the crown of the head stretches away from you toward the front of the room. Stretch the heart and chest forward. And that'll give you more space to rotate. Open it up. And rest. So come into our tabletop position just for a moment. As we transition here, we're going from downward dog to upward dog. As you come through upward dog, I want you to be very mindful of the lower back. You don't have to come very far to feel it, and I really want you to activate the legs. So like you're pushing the legs back, trying to lengthen the legs away from you. So we start in downward dog, we land there. Stay on the toes, come forward through plank. Keep the shoulders over the wrists, drop the hips, stretch the heels and legs back behind you. Roll back through downward dog. Come forward, roll the spine, drop the hips, keep the shoulders over the wrists, stretch the legs back. So you're activating glutes, hamstrings, backs of the legs, the quads, everything as you come through that upward dog. That will help keep the compression out of the lower back, and it will give you what we're looking for, which is the extension of the spine and that stretch across the front body. So downward dog, let your body land, and then come forward into that upward dog. Press the heels back. Feeling definitely a little bit tight in the front body today, so that alignment of shoulders over wrists, more of a challenge. Come back and lower down. Next up, we're going to come to the wall. I want you to bring the inside leg, so the leg that's closest to the wall, that's the one that comes forward. I want you to actually touch your hip and even your shoulder to that wall. So you have that connection. You'll bring the hands behind the head, open away from the wall first. Try and get the shoulders to the wall. Elbows are nice and wide. Then as we begin, you're going to arc around, twist toward the wall, maybe lean back away. That range of motion may not be accessible for everyone right from the beginning. So maybe you're just twisting open, not necessarily leaning back today. So we rotate up, around, toward the wall, and then maybe a slight lean back. This one, again, great for articulating the thoracic spine, so the upper back. It's this area of the body where we have so much range of motion, but it's underutilized. We often get sort of stuck or frozen where the hips and the ribs tend to move together. So this practice of mobility often involves articulating those two structures independently. You'll hear me talk about that a lot, sort of creating more freedom in the spine. And rest. We're going to take both knees down onto the floor now. I want you to bring your knees all the way to where the floor meets the wall. And you're going to lower down onto your belly. This one, just a simple wall sphinx. So I really want you to parallel the lower leg, press the feet and shins into the wall, and then come into your sphinx pose. You might release the neck by swaying the head side to side. If you need a little more, you're coming up onto the hands. I don't necessarily have that today, but you could spider your fingers and stretch a little bit more. Again, here, super important to lengthen the lower spine. So I want you to really press the shins into the floor and then coil the pubic bone just slightly toward the navel so that you're not pressing and crunching into the lower back, but instead we get to keep that lower back long. Press into the forearms. See if you can soften the hip flexors, low belly, all while neutralizing the pelvis. So we don't want to overarch the lower back here. We've got about 10 more seconds in this posture, and then we'll switch back to our half kneeling twist. So take care as you come out. Lower onto the belly first, and then press up onto the hands. Nice and slowly we'll transition again into that kneeling position on the second side. So the side that is closest to the wall, that's the foot that comes forward. We're going to turn away from the wall, but keep the hips in that square position. So keep that hip pressing into the wall. We rotate up and around, maybe lean back just slightly and come back through center. You want to try to get your shoulders onto the wall. Rotate, bring your chest to the wall, maybe lean back, and then come back around all the way. So here you are, again, fixing the position of the hips by pressing that inner leg, outer hip into the wall. That's going to stabilize the lower body so that you can create all this freedom in the upper back. Maybe tip that back elbow behind you if that feels good in your spine. We're just really exploring all planes of motion here today, inviting the body to move through patterns that may not feel like they appear in our daily lives, but they will support all the functional movement that we enjoy day to day. After this, we're coming into a windshield wiper. So I'm going to sit on my cushioned surface. I want your feet to stay flat on the mat the entire time. So we're just transferring from the inner to the outer edge. You can have your hands behind you or in front. We're going to lower down, knees touch. Keep those feet grounded so you're not letting them pop up. And as you come through that position, you're rotating slightly from one side to the other. So giving a little bit of rotation just to feel that stretch in the hip flexors. If you are hands-free, you're keeping the chest upright. So I want you to avoid rounding in to come through this position. If that's happening, I want you to take your hands behind so that you can keep your chest nice and lifted, spine vertical and strong. So again, you're not letting your feet pop up. You might travel a little bit, as you can see, moving around your mat. We've got just over 10 seconds left. Breathing here. And just adding any elements of flow that feel good in the upper body. Using that breath to kind of guide the movement. Next up, we're coming into a wide child's pose. So you'll take your knees a little bit wider than normal, toes turn slightly in, but you can keep a nice generous space between the feet. We're just going to rock back and forth. So I want you to come back into child's pose, press the hands forward, feel that stretch in the hips, and then roll forward, drop the hips. Doesn't have to be super far forward here. I want you to come just to the point where you can feel the hip flexors lengthen. You might feel some sensation across the quads or the inner thighs. And really take your time with this. So notice how the position of the pelvis changes, how it rotates to accommodate the change in body position. Come forward, keep the crown of the head stretching out in front of you. Belly is strong and active here. So you're lifting the hip points toward the low ribs so that you're not collapsing into the low belly, putting that strain on the lower back. Everything stays integrated. We have just one more position after this. We're going to come back to the wall once again. This time I want you to bring your hips all the way to the wall and then rotate the legs up as if you were moving to legs up the wall. I want you to touch your hips to that point where the wall meets the floor and then come into your squat. So feet can be parallel. I want you to hug your knees as close to the body as they'll go. You might have to inch the hips just a little bit closer. So you're hugging the hips, the knees in, keeping the feet as low as you can. Then I want you to reach your arms overhead and just circle the arms. So bring the elbows down by your sides and then reach the arms overhead. Push your feet into the wall a lot. And if you feel like your hips are popping up off the floor, I want you to try to neutralize that. So you can either press into the feet a little bit more or maybe walk your feet just slightly up the wall. This is like our overhead squat. So we're creating that range of motion in a really stable, supported way here. So the spine is having to stay upright as we're in this squat position. So you should feel your upper back firing here. As we progress over time, you might loop a band around your feet and then stretch it overhead with your arms to simulate the overhead squat. And big stretch, rest. Slowly come out of that position. We've got one final exercise here. We're going to come into our kneeling position. We'll take opposite elbows behind you. So you've got that nice spacious quality across the neck, and then simple neck rolls. So moving side to side, taking one ear to the same side shoulder, and then switching. This will be, I lied, this is our final exercise to complete our 20-minute practice. Just rotating one side to the other. Kind of freeing the trapezius, that big muscle in the upper back. Releasing any tension from the neck and shoulders. You can play with the position of your chin as you come to one side, maybe lifting it out and away. Really enjoying that release here. We've got just a few more seconds. And slowly let it go. You can shake it out. Take your time as you transition now. Bring your feet to your hands. Maybe hang heavy for a moment in a rag doll. Just let your head sway from side to side. And then we're slowly going to roll up bone by bone here, all the way to standing. Just take a quick body scan from head to toe. Notice how your spine feels. Maybe you're standing up just a little bit taller. Let's enjoy a huge breath in. And sigh it out, exhale. That completes your mobility work for today. I hope it felt just right as a complement to the strength training wherever you are in your cycle. Maybe opened up some new pathways, maybe helped alleviate some muscle soreness if you're experiencing that today. All things considered, I hope this practice hit just right. I want to thank you, as always, so much for showing up and for letting your body be moved.